because I really like Japanese history,
Giving
and
it a 5.
yeah, I'm giving it a 5.
Okay.
I really like Japanese history, so Heian era is not something that I really know about, and that's because a lot of people, most people, if you look into Japanese history or how it's depicted, even Shogun on FX is talking about the Sengoku Jidai right after that, and that's 600 years after the Heian era. So I was like,
All right, let's move on to the setting. What do we think about the lore and the history of JJK? I'll go first. I didn't like it. Um, so I will go 5. I think they did okay. Um, Lonnie.
3. What lore? What lore did we get? How much lore did we get? Well, I mean, we got some lore, but how much lore did we really get? So, I mean, yeah, we got some. Like we heard about the Hanan arc like 1,000 fucking times, but like, how many times did we ever get? Did we ever get? We got like what, like 2 flashbacks of like the Hanan.
A
So
little bit.
I mean, lore like how Kenjaku found the twin fetus of Sukuna's twin somehow that got reincarnated. I mean, we saw it. We heard about it. We didn't see it. Yeah. So I'll give it a 3.
Okay, Ty.
Lore. So we have like Zenin clan stuff. We have curses in general. We have certain specific curse techniques like the lore behind Maharaga. You have stuff with Tengen, Star Plasma stuff. Well, I'd say like 6.5.
Okay. Serena.
I give it about a 4. If we're talking setting and lore, is that what we're doing? Or
Wait, setting and lore.
Lore in the history.
lore and history.
Yeah.
See, one thing I think that's kind of interesting with JJK is that it's building off of stuff that like a foreign audience we don't know a lot about. Like the Heian era is like taught in school in Japan. So when they were referencing certain things that we're like, what? Who are those people? Like oh, he defeated the 4-star generals and all this different stuff. Like that they have a certain basis that we don't have. And but I'll say I'll say like a 4 because I don't think it was all that it wasn't great. And honestly too, things like the mechanics of the system, I don't know if we count that as part of lore, but building your own domain expansion and abilities, I was hoping we would learn more about that.
We'll talk about that in the power system.
Okay, yeah. So I'll say 4.
Y'all telling me changing. Miles, go ahead.
I'll say 5. It was average. I think it checked a lot of boxes, but we didn't really get any like detailed explanation on a lot of different things. So I'll just put it right in the middle. 5.
Okay, random.
same thing. I think because I really like Japanese history. And
Giving it a 5.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 5.
Okay.
I really like Japanese history, so Heian era is not something that I really know about, and that's because a lot of people, most people, if you look into Japanese history or how it's depicted, even Shogun on FX is talking about the Sengoku Jidai right after that, and that's 600 years after the Heian era. So I was really interested to look into that part of the history and just see how things work, because you don't get the katana like you see it, how people like talk and dress and all that. That's years before the popularized version of feudal Japan. So I'm really disappointed because other than that, I mean, what else about JJK's setting really stands out from anything else?
Fair enough. All right, power system. This is probably one of JJK's pillars that people always talk about when it comes to Jujutsu Kaisen. Power system, random. You can start it out.
It's still a little confusing for me, but I think I just don't get it. I've read it. This just doesn't compute with my brain, but I still think the power system is pretty good. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 compared to other power systems I've seen in other ones. I really enjoy it. I just think until I fully grasp it one day, and I'm tired of watching YouTube videos that don't explain it right, because I just want to be able to have a conversation about simple domains and domain expansions, how the powers work, without not sounding like somebody who just read it out of a dictionary 2 seconds ago. So I just want to be able to understand that.
All right. Miles?
I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. I like cursed energy a lot. I think it's very well fleshed out. I think there's counters for everything, and my favorite thing about it is you can be the strongest person in the world. Someone can have a useful enough curse ability that can kind of negate that, and I like that a lot. I like how there's also a way for people who don't have cursed energy at all to compete through the means of weapons and things like that. I like how there is a alternative to using cursed energy through heavenly restriction, and that can give you power. I like that a lot. So I just think there's a lot of ways that JJK established for you to be able to gain power in this series and utilize it effectively. I think domain expansions are dope. My only issue, and Serena did touch on it, I think when you start getting into the more advanced levels of curse energy, like domain expansion, for example, there isn't really a clear indicator as to what's the barometer that allows you to use these things. For Mahito, for example, he was getting his ass whooped, and through him trying to find himself through self discovery, he felt like he was ready to achieve it. Yuji through his training, whatever that was, well, I mean, we saw it, but his training, he was able to use it. I just wish we had a clear, defined explanation of like, okay, this person's ready to use it and what that will look like. Other than that, I fuck with it. Yeah, I'm high on it.
All right. Serena?
I give it like a 6 out of 10. I think, we see a lot of its effectiveness in how people love to talk about it and love to come up with 1v1s and all sorts of interesting things. I think because Gege did put that kind of love and attention into it. One thing that confused me early on as like a reader was wanting to know, how do people figure out they have a curse technique, and how do you nurture that? How do you make it better? Because we have like these kind of like muggle-born people, who don't come from cursed families, like Ghetto, who murked his family of monkeys, and he was someone who decided like, how do you know that you can swallow curse orbs? How do you know you can make them? To me, it was a little bit lacking in that department, and we got little things like Gojo talking about like, at the very end of around the end of Hidden Inventory, him talking about, I'm working on my curse domain, or my domain expansion. I'm working on stopping things, like having that auto barrier to protect myself. But I'm like, how do you do that? So for me, I was a little bit questioning how things work, and the fact that this is against the setting too. We go to a school, air quotes. We spend no time in school. So I used to wonder too, how does a teacher teach students who don't have the same curse technique as them? Because to me, I would homeschool my kid if it's like a cursed family type, or not cursed, but sorcerer family, and they've got the same thing. I'm like, you're staying, like, I'm just gonna teach you how to use it. Grandpa knows how to use it. We all know how to use it. So why would I send you to Jujutsu Tech? I feel like that's one thing that hurts it for me. But I do think there were a lot of details that got people excited to talk more about the counters and all things like that. So I'd say 6.5. 6.5.
All right. Ty?
I don't know. I think it's a 10. I think what really solidified it as a 10 was Gojo vs. Sukuna. Like that was really displaying everything about the power system in Gojo vs. Sukuna. And I think at least trying to write all those fights and keep all the powers consistent, and I think Gege does a pretty decent job with it. I think it's a 10. Like it's like trying to write fights is already hard, but you have all these abilities. You have to win out. Like how do all these bits interact with each other? Like how does a unlimited void interact with the malevolent shrine, and all the little small details that go into, okay, if I'm using the amplification, I can't use Maharaga. But if I turn off my amplification, I take enough damage, I last for 3 minutes, and then our domains clash. We open our domains at the exact same time. As why we like. It's just so many things. Like, bro, like to write all that. Yeah, that's crazy. That's a 10, bro.
Lonnie?
I'll give it like a 8.5. Some of y'all made a lot of good points in terms of pros and cons. I think it is very diverse and unique, and like how Miles said, like different. It can be a weaker curse technique, but you can still end up winning depending on the properties and stuff like that. I would have given it a 10 if it wasn't for kind of like not the inconsistencies of binding vows, but kind of like I feel like towards the end it was definitely overused a little bit. Like Sukuna was just spamming binding vows. Also, we don't really get the barometer of binding vows. Like what exactly equals this, so I get this in the binding vow. I also wish, like, even though I'm not knocking it against it, I wish like we got to see what happens if someone breaks a binding vow, because they said like catastrophe happens. We never really got to see the consequences of it, especially since it's used so often. I was really hoping like, yo, Sukuna thinks I'm him. I can get through breaking a binding vow if I need to, type situation. But we just never got that. But yeah, other than the inconsistencies and like the details of like what level of stuff you have to give up for a binding vow for it to work, I think everything else is like pretty well fleshed out. I do agree. I wasn't even thinking of the whole school aspect, Serena. Like that is factual. Like what are they teaching these?
Is Lonnie cooked?
Yeah, maybe.
Tough. Um, okay, I'll round it out then. Power system for Jujutsu Kaisen Cursed Energy. I think a lot of y'all made a lot of good points. I do think the complexity, I'm a big fan when it's complex, but I do have some issues with certain things that I don't think are fleshed out enough. I mean, you can, I still have an issue with like the last three chapters bringing up the importance of simple domain and what it means at the very end. Um, I think that plays into like certain things and its importance and its portrayal. I think could be better, but I still think it's obviously one of the better power systems. It's obvious that Gage put a lot of thought into this, and it translates very well in anime. Just like Hunter x Hunter, when they do things, it translates very well in terms of anime, seeing what they're doing and seeing all the different intricacies between the battles, of course, and the thought process that goes on when the battle takes place. So I like all of that stuff. I'll give it a 9. I'll give it a 9.
I would say just this is kind of a side point about the binding vow thing. I think the implication is that you die because when Sukuna is explaining binding vows and breaking it, I think that's just the implication that you die. It kind of reminds me of, and this is why I'm okay with certain things being vague because for consistency's sake, right? Like for example, Kakashi tells Naruto and they're like, if you run out of chakra, you're gonna die, but we don't really ever see that happen. Or we know that Naruto can produce a lot of clones. How many clones can produce? We don't really know, but it's just a lot. Because if you get specific, like let's say the average ninja can produce 5 clones, and Naruto they say, well, you're special, you can produce 20. If you use 21, we'll be like, that's inconsistent. Because like you just keep it. I think that's why some things are vague, so that you don't put yourself in a hole. I still understand wanting to learn certain things, but I do think with binding vows, I think that the implication is just you die
All right.
because these all the chains and all that stuff. So